I see that.
Okay, here we go. The video is on, and we're starting our meeting. I'd like a motion to approve the minutes of the September 15th meeting first.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from 9:15.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Everybody was here? Good. Motion carries. Now, the meeting on 9/29 involved only a few people. So those persons would be the ones to approve those minutes. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September 29th.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Who wasn't here that, so 2 abstentions? I wanted to thank everybody who came to that meeting. At the time, there was 2 reasons I asked for it. One, I was told that it would be good while the contractor's on site to get these lights in. And then I was told, well, he'll hold the money until January. But I wanted to make sure that these lights got in for the current football season, because I know how dark it is moving from the football field to the parking lot. They're not in yet because at that meeting, for those of you who weren't here, the superintendent and the people involved changed the lights to LEDs to match what we had, which is also more cost effective. So they're not installed yet. The lesson for me is to probably not rush something like that in the future, but I was just defending myself. I was looking at the safety of having better lighting for those night games. So thank you for coming, but I think it'll be a rare occasion, even when the scope of something is changing, that we have a special meeting for it. It has to have, in my mind, looking back, a better reason to have that kind of meeting. Calling you all in, you're all volunteers on a special night. It may not have been necessary, but that's hindsight because the lights aren't in yet. They may be coming soon. I haven't been able to get a hold of Mr. Hogan. Moving forward, public comment. If you're here to discuss something that's on the agenda, we will allow you to speak. If you're not here for those reasons, you may speak now. Okay? Communications from city officials, account balances, open projects, etc.
So account balances, we currently have 0 remaining in open space and affordable housing, 130,000 remaining in historic preservation, and 154,212 in the reserve fund and 873,000 in the designated fund. So for a total of 1 point. So that's not quite right. Yeah, 1.15 million. The numbers look a little less than what you see on the
September 15th.
The September 15th minutes because the Parks Department hasn't been approved yet by council.
Yes, it was last night.
It was last night. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
But you deducted it already.
But I took it out because it was pending. So.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this, and I know we've had this discussion in the past. The accounts, the first 4 accounts in project balances, which total $50-some thousand remaining. How do we get that money back? It doesn't look like it's being used. And is it in an account that is set aside in our account? Like,
all that money is still in the city's financial.
Why can't the committee vote to bring it back to the full account or take it away? They don't need it anymore.
Well, so for the Lower Mill Pond Park, the $5,821 is planned to be used by the Parks and Rec director after the completion of the rail trail project. So it was.
Is that something that the CPA committee designated as possible at the time?
I wasn't there in 2005 and 2007.
So our rules right now about the scope of the project changing or new things weren't in play at the time?
No.
So you don't know that either?
No, I mean, this committee didn't have any rules prior and.
And the
the way
clock
that-
repair and
The clock repair is something that I'm working to figure out how to get the rest of that money used up, and we're trying to figure out what the remaining scope is needed to, on the clock.
and on the rail trail and the old town hall.
Rail trail money is, we have, construction easements from the original layout that need to be documented. We're working with Northampton to, work on that, and there are cost savings to try to do it together as opposed to both of us.
So that's why we have to retain that account in there.
Right.
And the old town hall improvements that are not done yet.
That is, I think it's just punch list items that are slowly being worked down. It's currently at, 3873.
Right.
So that's.
I don't mind 2014, that's not so long ago, but items that are in here since 2005, just like the money to be accounted for. So perhaps a report at the next meeting on the first three items, or all the items, and how they will, where they stand with regard to that money. If the Park and Rec Director is allowed to use the money for the Lower Mill Pond Park, I'd like to know if that's true and what he's going to use it for. My feeling is the committee ought to be up to date on why this money is held in accounts for 10 years. Does anybody have a comment on that? This is just me thinking, come on, guys.
Over
why-
5. I mean, you know, anything that's over 5 years old, we should have a reason to keep it going for every single cycle thereafter, I would think. I mean, I don't know of a project that.
Well, right now, we have rules that say that a certain date, the project has to be over. That's
Yeah,
what we have now.
I think
so-
we've moved in that direction. I think it's a good move. I mean, I'm all for at least cleaning up our list of projects.
That's what I'm worried about, yeah. I should report to you, very good news, that the lights, those of you who were here, and for those of you who don't know, the lights on the football field came in at something like 1:30. We're gonna have, even with the $5,000 they asked for, we're gonna get $50,000 back. That's a good thing. And the rest of the stuff, obviously, they haven't spent the money, but we just approved the rest of the stuff on that list. Anything else, Jamie, you want to report, meetings or anything?
This was cut out of the Gazette today, regarding the Hampshire County Courthouse. There'll be an article this weekend if anyone gets the Gazette.
Saving a
wants-
gem? I was told by the historic Harry, who was at the historic meeting, that he didn't show up when we asked him to show up there. Last meeting, recall, we asked him to go there to seek input from the Historic Commission.
Todd Ford.
This is about the Hampshire County Courthouse renovation that he asked for money, Council of Governments.
Do you wanna have that?
Was he invited by the commission?
I don't know how we left it. We left it that he should go there first, so the
I think, yeah,
Historic
we
Commission.
recommended that he should probably go through them.
He has something else to do last night.
Did you know, was he on the agenda and
Yes,
he
he
didn't
was.
show up? He was on the agenda?
Yes, he was.
Okay. Good. We'll wait to see what happens on that. Okay, moving on to our first item up for business is the East Hampton City Clerk's renovation. Barbara, have you seen the project funding worksheet, which is basically our contract to you? And do you agree with all the statements on that?
It was emailed to you last week, but,
So obviously you haven't read it yet.
pass that down.
That's going down there.
So I passed it
This
down.
is what we do now for all projects. It's basically a boilerplate thing.
Yeah, I passed it down.
And we want to make sure that, one, that projects are reported back to us when they're done, things like that, and. John is here, all right. Please note in the record that we are very happy to see our Historic Commission representative.
Don't do that.
Sorry, I didn't see this, but everything out of it's just fine.
So periodic updates. One of the reasons is we'd like our projects to be completed in a timely fashion so that any funds that aren't being used, we get to use again.
They said, I think the
Not that you won't, you'll
Yeah, the
probably spend it all.
company- The company, I think they said like 10 weeks from when they're picked up.
Okay.
So, 10 weeks, beginning on the date of the receipt, so.
You can
Whenever
s-
you approve it, I'll call them and we'll be done.
Well, it has to go to the city council.
Well, no, I mean, yes,
You should. The conservation proposal on the back tells us what her budget, she's spending it on. I like the deaths in 1941, $413. There weren't many deaths, or what? Does the committee have any questions on this? This is, we went over this the last time, and this is just the final review.
Barbara, is this a quote, like, is there any chance that this could go over?
no, it.
This is like,
Yeah.
they're gonna bill you for exactly this?
Right, right. The company comes out and the list that you got in the back, he takes all the books and looks at them and that's exactly how much it will be. And we've used this company, I don't know how many times, 3 or 4 times, it's always
Got it.
exactly the amount.
Okay, I just didn't know if we needed to build in any wiggle room, so you
No,
you had enough.
No, I would say that he gave me.
No
that quote.
contingency fund needed.
That
Great.
would be what it is.
Okay. And this is a reimbursement type situation, Jamie?
No, the money will get transferred right to
Barbara?
the park, the street clerks.
Oh, okay.
accounts.
Is that what happens with all city department
Right,
things?
that's why we aren't able to pull money. The CPA committee for older projects has no teeth to.
If it's a city project? I'm
just-
curious, I'm
just-
curious
and this is-
why, because.
This is what I was told by the former mayor, so
So if Barbara doesn't, I apologize, that will be turned off. So if Barbara doesn't use all the money, we can't go after it because it's a city? No?
she has to return it, she has to make a.
She has to do it.
Right.
I have one question about the photos. You want a picture of every book?
No.
Where does it say that?
Number 3.
That's a
think that-
boilerplate thing,
Yeah,
because
it's a
sometimes we
generic
have
thing.
like.
First look at a
I can do it,
project,
but I'm
yeah.
just not really sure if you want.
Maybe if you put all the books in one place and do a photo, that would be good.
Or even just
Bring 'em in, I
circle
mean,
back
or-
around it with one
Well,
to show
we'll
us.
just go down the-
Yeah, or walk down the hall, we'll say, here it is.
Yeah, Field trip.
Right.
I guess what we, you know why we need things like that? It's so that we can put on the website when projects are done, like Mutterfield was just done, and it's got pictures, we can demonstrate that this is what your money's being spent. So a photograph of all these, maybe one photograph of an internal picture would be great. And you gotta put a sign right outside your door that says CPA funded activity inside.
Okay.
Nothing else, committee? Then I'll take a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve this project for $12,774.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion on the floor for $12,774 for city clerk vital records preservation and restoration. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so it's 8-0, unanimous. Barbara, I will, hopefully, Jamie will get this to the mayor, and we'll get it on the next council agenda, and I will make a public hearing for the second meeting in November.
Just to let you know, I will not be at the council meeting, second meeting.
Okay, so we can't, we'll have to delay it.
I mean, it doesn't matter, you can do it without
I'm
me.
only
but-
kidding. All right, that's done. Now we gotta spend big bucks for the Department of Public Works and the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We went over this last time, Joe. And just so everybody knows, we're talking about the Cook County Drinking Water Supply and Open Space Protection Account. Have you seen this document? Somebody hand him
Here we
a
go.
Preservation Act
There's a couple extra copies.
funding worksheet. Anybody involved with this from Southampton should see this sheet. If you haven't seen it, do we have any more copies of this?
Just pass
Oh,
it
yeah,
out.
I got a copy.
I'm good, Al.
Number 5 is pretty important, that deed restriction. We talked about that at the last meeting. Which is basically what East Hampton's, if I recall, that's East Hampton's part of this. I think you're right. The $300,000 for 2 CRs, one donated by Southampton. And as I recall, you said at the last meeting, the town meeting approved this unanimously? How many members in the town meeting? Like 100?
How many were present at the meeting? There were 174, I believe, was the count.
See, so that, I think that's remarkable. 174 people voted yes at a government function. I'm sorry, I just think that's So obviously Southampton wants this to happen. Joe is here, and we did want to ask him here. You guys remember why, if you have any questions for our Department Works Director, how long will this take to happen?
Well, that's hard to say because it's kind of a multi-layered thing where there's different agencies involved and theirs is in place, you're putting yours in place, then now it goes to Mass DEP and they've got to get their amount in place too. I don't know what their timetable is, but I do, if I remember right, there was some sort of a deadline that they had to act on.
I could say, I mean, for the total project, we're hoping to close in spring of 2017.
Yeah, I see that.
We're applying to 2 state grants. One we already have the application in for, which is the land grant. Optimistically, we could hear about that grant at the end of October. They're hoping to absolutely get to us by mid-November, so that would give us the 3rd leg of the program if we get that. If we don't get the land grant, either way, we're going to be starting our application for the Drinking Water Supply Protection Grant. That application is due on December 6th, so we're going to start that irregardless. You know, we'll stop work on that obviously if we get land, but I would imagine for that application, we would probably hear in January or early February whether we get that grant.
When you just said the land grant, if you don't get that,
Yeah,
does
so we
that
can
stop
only
the
get one.
project?
What was that?
Does that stop the project?
No, we're going for 2. We're applying to both grants, even though we can only receive one. But because there's a deadline coming up in December, we want to get that 2nd grant running. You know, even before, even though we will hear about the land grant before the application is due. So no, the land grant, not getting the land grant will not stop the project. We just go for the drinking water grant then. And I'm fairly confident that we'll get one.
I'm confused, because
Okay,
I
go
thought
right
you needed the $400,000 from the state, the land grant,
Yes.
to purchase the property.
If we don't get that, we can get $350,000 potentially from the drinking water grant. So we have 2 chances to get state grants.
I misunderstood, so those 2 grants are for the same
They're for
thing
the
in a
same
sense.
thing.
But you said you can only get one? There's
Yes.
no way to apply. You can't, just because it's both.
We can,
the
we
state.
can apply for both, but we wouldn't be awarded both.
That's the-
We couldn't be for the same project, no.
Okay.
It's one or the other, but it's nice that we have two shots. We have 2 swings at the plate. You know,
And you're
state
confident
police.
you're gonna get one of them?
I'm pretty confident, yeah. I mean, I think we are, a shoo-in for the drinking water grant. And I think we have a good shot at the land grant too, and we really impressed on the state rep when he came up for the property visit that this is the one shot to get this project done, in terms of timing. If this current push to protect this land doesn't happen now, the land's to be developed, and he seemed to be moved by that, compelled by it. So I'm confident one way or the other we'll get one of those 2 grants.
So
Yeah.
I see if you only get the water grant, you don't get the land grant, that we have a $25,000 contribution to contingency.
Yeah, yeah, so, yeah.
If you get the land grant, that funds the whole project. You don't need the contingency.
Correct.
So this $343,000 that we are contributing might be $25,000
Correct.
less
Exactly.
if you get the land grant.
Correct.
Everybody understand that?
Go land grant.
Go land grant.
And we did the same thing in the town of Southampton too. We had them to approve as if we got the lower grant from the state, just in case.
Joe, everybody knows that this water protection is important, but is there anything special about this land with regard to aquifer protection that you want to bring up to the committee?
Well, it's very simple. The entire area is right over our Barnes Act, whether it's all the houses out in the southern section that are built, we can't do anything about it now, or this. Well, we've got an opportunity to protect this piece, or else end up with more houses like we have in the southern section. So if we have the opportunity to protect it and the cost is split up 3 ways, that makes it very viable, very, very attractive.
Are they classified as agricultural? I know there's some agricultural land on the farm.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
Well, the CR allows for agricultural development, doesn't it?
It would limit it either way, I think. There would
It
be
limits the
restrictions.
kind of
Yeah.
pesticides and
yeah,
fertilizers
chemical
and
inputs in the
stuff.
lands,
Okay.
if it was continued to produce in agriculture.
Mark, I believe you said this last time, but can, as far as other uses like recreational uses, who would determine those uses?
It's a combination. The state certainly has their standards, which they set forth for each grant. They talk less about recreation, obviously, for the drinking water grant, but for the land grant, you know, they do want public access to the property, but definitely passive public recreation, you know, no building,
Right.
no paved parking lots, that type of thing for this type of land. But beyond that, it would be a negotiation between the town of Southampton and the city of East Hampton as to what's in the exact CR. So that would be a back and forth.
So the CR might allow passive recreation like trails, or it might allow agricultural uses.
Light
certain kinds.
agricultural, community gardens were suggested. It's mostly been, you know, walking trails, snowshoeing, that type of thing, sledding. You know, you're not gonna put in a playing field.
Right. But in order to put in a trail, that would, you said there'd be a negotiation between East
Yeah,
Hampton
I
and
mean,
Southampton,
you can
right?
certainly, I mean, you will sit down, obviously, so that there will be some parameters, obviously, again, set by the state. But then if you know, within those parameters, the two communities will certainly sit down and talk, as happens with any CR. It's a negotiated, you know, contract between the holder and the landowner. So you would come to terms, you know, if there's something in particular that you're worried about in terms of the use on the land.
No, I mean.
Honestly, I think there's some really good opportunities there for passive recreation, given its location. When we were again having a property visit there, there were a number of people from East Hampton coming down, passing by to walk their dogs on the nearby protected land, the wildlife management area. So I mean, I think East Hampton residents could get some good use of that, turned into a pretty lesser developed park.
If it needed development because it's Southampton property, I imagine that development would fall under Southampton jurisdiction. I mean, if we decided to make trails,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't want those trails paved, of course, because we want
Oh,
the water to permeate, but if you're making trails, somebody in Southampton, the Southampton people would be doing that.
They'd be doing it, exactly. But again,
But
you would
the
have-
CR still has to be negotiated between East Hampton, Southampton, and it has to be in the CR that we're allowing
Exactly.
certain kinds of trails or agriculture.
So that's my understanding, is that East Hampton's role is really on the front end when we are deciding the conservation restriction. And then once the conservation restriction is in place, Southampton owns the land and would make decisions on, or could, I mean, with East Hampton input if they want, but they don't necessarily have to.
No, they don't have to
As long
come
as they're
to
within
us.
the confines of the conservation
You
restriction.
would, and that's actually something you could negotiate within the document. You know, I don't represent a town, I obviously represent the land trust, and we hold CRs, and we monitor our CRs yearly. We send someone out, we have a baseline document, so you have to prepare a baseline document. I don't know if your monitoring requirements are the same, but of course you can send people out, and you could actually require in the CR for certain changes that you request either permission, that Southampton contact you, either written or verbally about any changes to the land that are gonna happen. You can specify what those changes are. If there's gonna be a trail put in, you can say Southampton has to contact us, at least let us know.
Sure.
You can argue and say that, they need permission to do certain things. I mean, that gets a little more tricky about, how tough you want to be, but if it's something really, that you're worried about, you could put that language in the CR.
Yeah, I'm not particularly worried about it, and it's also not really our role as
I think
CPA
notification is
committee, but-
sufficient. We're gonna put some trails there, because it's something that might be advertised. But Joe, are you involved in this negotiation, or is that strictly Jessica in the planning
No,
department?
Public Works would be on that too.
So you're gonna make sure, of course, what is allowed, and all I would think would be necessary is notification of any land uses that Southampton intends to pursue, agricultural or passive trails, whatever we wanna do. I think that's appropriate, so that you know, you especially, that this is happening. If they wanna put down a certain kind of material on the trails, you might have an objection depending on the permeability of that gravel or whatever it is. That's what I'm saying. Okay. I doubt any of this is happening. I'm just looking at far-flung possibilities. And this is gonna be here for infinitely. So we have to make sure that future planners, future park, you're never retiring. We're not allowing you to retire. Future DPW people know what's going on. Okay. Any other questions?
Are the buildings gonna be left there, or are they gonna be knocked
The
down?
buildings are being excluded from the protected land, so they're gonna be carved out.
Oh, really?
Buildings. Yeah,
I think we talked about this.
Should be on the map,
There's
yeah,
not that
it's-
many buildings anyway.
no, with the small
Already
houses,
been.
farmers all.
Were they the ones off County Road?
County Road North, yes. It's 2 acres where the house sits. The house
Sits
is
back
lot.
from the.
Is that an occupied house right now?
Not now,
But it could be?
yes.
So in other words, it's not,
With work.
Nice spot.
But those building lots were already removed from the application.
right. But if the house, somebody bought the house, so who owns the house now, though?
The
You-
family.
The family still owns it, so if you wanted to tear it down and build a new one, you could, because it's not restricted.
Right.
Okay.
Subject to this.
Subject to what?
It's not subject to any of this.
Right, that's what I'm saying. There's no restrictions or nothing. Okay, cool. Anything else, everybody? Is this a reimbursement thing, or do we just hand them a check?
Not for you, the land grant is reimbursement, so, the only reimbursement, that can have to be done is for Southampton. They're gonna have to shell out more money for their purchase of the 15, or the original 15 acres on it, which comes to like $700,000. So they're gonna have to borrow money for that and get repaid.
So we're paying, well, I'm just asking, is this 343,000 being sent directly to
Also, it's because it's the,
Whoever sells
it's the
it.
it's the DPW,
DPW?
or the planning department. I don't know who will be, what department will.
Who administers this, Joe? Is that you guys?
Right? I think it's gonna be a joint thing between planning and DPW, just
Okay.
because Jessica's got some piece and we have some other piece.
Okay.
It's not something we haven't done before, we see the departments and let that downstairs.
Okay. All right, I think, from my end, I'd like to know if that 25,000 is necessary. Come back to us. Okay,
Well, hopefully no sooner.
okay. Anything else, everybody? Take a motion.
I'll move to approve this Cook County Road Drinking Water Supply and Open Space Protection Project for the amount of $343,762.50.
Second the motion.
Okay, discussion. I just want to make note that Jamie has indicated which accounts we're funding this from, open space, reserve, and undesignated. Does that clean up reserve? Because that's the full reserve account is done after this. Everybody knows that. It's in the minutes, you can see the balances. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
If possible, anybody, and I would suggest anybody at all, especially the people from Southampton, should attend the city council's public hearing, which will be in 2 meetings. This will go to council and go to finance for 2 Wednesdays, not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that. It'll be at finance. I'll ask Jessica to come, because she's a big one for that. I don't know if you were around, Joe. Jessica and you would be fine. But I don't expect any problem. The fact that 174 people said yes from Southampton is a good statement. City
And no one
councils will
said-
be, do you have the dates there?
Mark's a good speaker, he's talking into it.
But Mark, that would be good for you to come to
So
explain.
it was, I think it's November 15th,
The next council meeting is November 2nd, so it'd be November 16th.
16th.
That's when the public hearing will be.
Okay, I'll make sure to have a good number of people there.
Okay, and I know there's some timing issues, that's why we wanted to get this done by now, okay? So,
Is that here, in this space?
up above,
Upstairs.
third floor, full council meeting. You're welcome to attend the finance meeting, which will happen on the 9th of November. Unless you're still, trying to wake up from the previous election. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We don't have a lot more to talk about, everybody. The Hampshire Council of Governments were supposed to come to the Historic Commission. They were on the agenda and they didn't show up. John, I don't know if you were here, but they showed up and gave us a big speech, and we said, how about if you have the Historic Commission back you up on this? And they failed to appear. So,
Did Todd Ford, did he actually contact anybody at the Historic Commission, or is that just like he walked? Because I'm not sure.
how'd they get on the agenda if they weren't?
That's my question, I guess, I don't know.
Do you know?
How they got on the agenda?
Yeah.
So they,
Did
I
they mail it?
I reached out to him after the meeting and sent him an email with, I think, to John, Harry, and Mike, and said, you know, here are the people you need to talk to, and
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything after that, so.
So Jamie may have initiated it with, is Mike the chair? of that
Yeah, he knew about it.
committee?
I
Okay, well,
had assumed it kind of came in the mail, because I know a lot of it does, and we discussed it, but we expected representation in the show, so.
he might have heard
He
a
was
lot.
busy.
He might have heard a lot
He
from
was
us that
busy.
we're very reticent
Making
about
the rounds
this
to all the
expenditure,
communities, so-
Yeah.
especially if Northampton hasn't said yes yet, and it's in their community, but.
Yeah, that reticence was shared.
Okay. And we're still waiting on, oh, John, you're here. Pedestrian bridge from Pomeroy Meadow Conservation Area. We have heard nothing. It's been on our agenda since March. Do you know anything about this?
What is it?
Yeah. It's your turn.
The bridge.
The bridge.
The bridge.
We have Pomeroy Meadow Conservation, Whitmore Conservation, Passaic
Yeah.
Conservation Trust, and Southampton Conservation Commission. We're
The bridge
sponsored.
of nowhere, you know that bridge.
That's why he came, give you an update.
So.
Is that why you're here? Oh, thank you.
We're gonna give you an update, yeah. Unfortunately, we've had a couple setbacks. lately.
Oh, boy.
Charlie McDonald, who was the project manager, resigned from the Conservation Commission. He had a big quarrel with them. And we haven't really been in contact with him that much regarding our organization, so he's not helping us much either. So we're like a ship without a captain right now. We are looking for another another project manager. And we have a couple possibilities. We've been working with Jamie Bartak from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. She's been helping us on NOIs and a waterways grant, waterways permit. And she may be coerced to help us even more. And another possible direction to go is this gal from Arcadia. She's the education coordinator over there, and she overheard us talking about that project the other day at our meeting, and she says she might be interested in helping us, and hopefully maybe she can come on board with us and get us through this. So we're pushing forward. We still have the backing of the mayor and Jessica. We're going, Fred and I are going to.
I'm on the PCT board, Fred and Tracy.
And you're on
Hi, Fred.
our board?
No, I'm just on Pascagoula Conservation Trust.
Right, I meant the one in East Hampton.
Yes, yes, yes,
Southampton's
yes.
Conservation Commission is still supporting this.
As far as we know.
Well, that was how it was presented to us.
Yeah, well, so anyway, we're gonna attend the Southampton Conservation Commission meeting Monday and bring everybody up there up to date. I understand that some of those people on that commission don't know too much about this project, and they have their doubts about putting, giving money for a bridge. So we're gonna go out there and do our best to sell them the bridge.
So, let me ask, it sounds like this may need to be reworked budget-wise, design-wise, a lot of stuff.
Well, there's a lot of
Perhaps
stuff
you
going-
were gonna have to reapply to this committee, Southampton CPA committee, for funding, when you know more.
Yes, we did start, we do have initial bids from 3 engineering firms. But we wanted them to resubmit their bids because it was like comparing apples to oranges, nothing was standard.
Mhm.
We want to get a standard outline bid, so we're waiting on that.
Well, what I'm suggesting is perhaps we pull this off of our agenda until you're ready to come up with a plan that's more current.
Yeah, right.
Would that make sense to the
Yeah.
committee? I think we might as well pull this off, because it sounds like you gotta start over in many respects. I know you're getting new bids, but you also have to get a project manager, confirm Southampton's. I mean, I don't remember, but I'm assuming Southampton has to help you with this.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So what do you think? Just redo the application as soon as you have all the ducks in a row. I mean, I don't think the committee will be unwilling to hear it, but
Remind me, was a formal application for this project submitted already?
yeah, March 24th.
Yeah. I remember the preliminary discussion, I do remember.
Yeah,
There is
that's
a-
right. Jamie, we have-
There is a deadline of one item. We have a DCR grant.
Recreational trails grant.
Right.
For $50,000 that
It expires at the end of 2017, so.
Well, we got time. Is that requiring funding, local funding to match it?
Well, it's certainly not sufficient. I don't know if does it require matching funds, or
Or some funds?
does it require matching funds?
No.
No. No, but the project needs another 70 to 100,000, and we were getting that matching from East Hampton and from Southampton CPAC.
Well, just to prevent a lot of questions from the committee, a lot of it always comes from about budget. If you can resubmit the budget and everything, I mean,
Yeah.
we can keep the application open, but it sounds to me like when you come back, it has to be a very current dollar figure, participation, and who's doing it, et cetera, your bids, as you say. And I would suggest you come back. I guess you don't have to reapply. I don't know if we have to have them reapply, but whatever was submitted previously is dated now, because it was March, right? Am I correct?
Right.
I would suggest if there are significant changes to just essentially put forward another application and withdraw the old application. Or,
Yes,
you know,
ma'am.
You know, if you have slight amendments, that's fine, but if it looks like the project scope or the budget is gonna be significantly different, then that's one way to do it, so, but I'm not sure how much, you know.
And especially if
I
it
get-
includes.
I get that the project essentially is in a holding pattern right now, is what I'm hearing, so.
for a little while. It all depends on what happens Monday, of course.
Yeah.
We get through that, get going faster.
Well, we'll be here.
Yeah, and.
Ma'am, you
like I
wanted
said-
to say something?
Well, I can wait for everyone else to finish.
No, they're all finished. Go ahead.
All right. I was here at the last meeting in March where this was presented, and I understood that you supported it as passive recreation. But at the time, there were no concrete numbers other than the apples to oranges type of bids. And you specifically said, as did the Southampton Community Preservation, you really needed to see the solid numbers.
Right,
And
I
so
remember.
we all left. At that time, I was the clerk of the Southampton Conservation Commission. At the moment, I'm the chair, because when Charlie resigned, I was put in that position now. So after your meeting, the folks at the Land Trust and Southampton Conservation Commission went to Pioneer Valley Planning Commission and then asked, how do we go about getting those solid numbers that both you and Southampton Community Preservation needed? You had to have bids. And because of the procurement laws for a project such as this, it is not the same as, hey, could you give us some numbers? It then has to be published in a specific way, on a specific website. So Pioneer Valley Planning Commission was helping with that. And then some things happened along the way, and varying procurement officers in East Hampton and Southampton said, wait a minute, you can't ask for bids to know how much it would cost without having the money in place to pay for it. And we said, well, we can't have the money in place to pay for it until we know how much it is. So therefore, we have two community preservation saying, tell us how much it is before we say, okay, here's the money, but we can't find out how much it costs because we don't have the money ahead of time that we could pay for it.
My solution to that is getting someone who's willing to give you an estimate that's better than an educated guess, like Cannon or somebody who could give you an estimate on what he thinks it might cost. Ask for more than that, because the CPA, it's a reimbursement thing anyway. If you don't need as much money, when you get the bids in after you're allowed to, because the money's in place, we get the money back. So I'm not worried about that. But you need to get somebody who's educated in the field to give you an estimate. And I think that's how it worked with maybe Mutter or any of the things you do, because it's the same problem. We just passed the Park and Rec thing at the council, and John, the Park and Rec director, said, well, we can't get the design completed. He had a plan, a schematic, and they estimated it until they get the money. So you have to, it's like a catch-22 in a sense. But you have someone who has knowledge give you that kind of estimate. Cannon, I don't know, it's a landscape architect? What would it be?
I think that's what the engineering firm do.
The engineering firm, okay.
Yeah, as I said, their original estimates average around 50,000.
And you felt that they were fairly
Yeah.
honest?
Yeah, but, you know, since we've been working on other things on that project, and rethinking the project, we know it's gonna be a little more. And, as I said, we're waiting for them to rebid and get a final estimate.
I thought the 50,000 was for their part in engineering, design, engineering, and oversight.
Yeah.
I didn't think it didn't include the cost of the bridge.
No, it does, the cost of the bridge will come from, as I understand it, from the 50,000?
Originally, they thought it was a 30-foot fiberglass bridge, and that was 50,000. But because an engineering study had not yet been done, which would determine which position on the river it actually needs to go, and therefore allowing for a 100-year high water mark, it may be a 30-foot bridge, it may need to be a 40-foot bridge, it may be a 50-foot bridge, depending on where it's going. And therefore, depending on where it's going, the footings would have to be different, because you don't know if you're gonna hit ledge or sand or clay or whatever. I am not a bridge person, I'm a computer programmer. But, so when you first do your $50,000-ish for the engineering study, then you go into the building and construction mode, and they've said, if I'm understanding this correctly, and it's possible that I'm not, first you have to get the chunk of money to do the engineering study, pay that bill. From there, now that they know where it's gonna go and how long it has to be, then you get another number for, now this is how much it's gonna cost to actually put it in. So
Well, we've done projects like this in 2 steps. We've done design
It's-
projects,
it's
we've
that.
paid for design, knowing that we'd like to support it. So I think that's the way to go. You've got to get the money in place from the 2 CPA committees for the design.
Yes.
I think originally, and I'm asking again, we were in support of something like this. And it sounds like you need the design funds first. So I think you should reapply looking at the design funds, maybe with a eye on what the total cost might be, but we all would know that that'll have to be refined once we get the designs done. But you know, the 50,000, it sounds like that's the design money you need?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's design, engineering.
Preliminary planning,
preliminary
the site
study.
visit.
Yeah, and overseeing I think it's overseeing the construction and things like that. It was like what that firm would provide from start to finish.
So, to me, what?
50,000 from the state can't be used for design?
That I am not sure of. The 50,000 from the state, can we just use that for the design?
Yes.
Thanks.
I'm not sure.
We brought it up at the last meeting, and Charlie went back and asked the woman at DCR, and my understanding is she said it would be okay to start withdrawing from that pool of money to start moving it along, but you still need to get.
So what's to
the
keep us from just getting that design, and then when we find out how much it's gonna be, split it in two and come back and give it to.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Procurement officers in both towns not saying go is what's holding you up.
Well, we don't need them to say go to get the study. We have $50,000 to get the study.
You don't have that yet. You have to apply for that grant, don't you?
No, we've got that grant.
The grant's in effect.
We have that.
Well, then, yeah, you don't need that's your money. It's not any
Right.
city's money,
Yeah,
right?
let us know how it goes.
I think you do that, and I'm gonna ask that we pull this off of the agenda, and you're gonna come back when you really know what you need.
Yeah.
Especially, you're gonna meet with the Southampton committee, you're gonna find out what that CPA committee, you're gonna tell them that you're gonna do the study using the money you have. That's a very good way to do it. You don't even need design funds, you have the design funds. Does that make sense, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, as long as we're sure we can use it for the design funds, it's a great way to go. We come back
Yeah.
and.
Well, if you
know, a
can't,
couple months with-
come back to us with a new application for design funds. We've done that before for other projects where we funded.
Good. Well,
Make
it's-
sense?
It's good for me. I've never been to these meetings. Good for me to see what the environment is, what the support is. I mean, clearly you guys like the no-brainer benefits of this project, linking two adjacent parcels and getting double use out of it. So,
I like that.
We just proved a even more complicated Southampton, East Hampton project, so,
Yeah.
This one should be too.
we're open to, taking the application and looking at it.
Well, I also like the engineering study being done first, because you talk about high water marks and things like that. That's important. And we're tasked with spending our city taxpayers' money responsibly, so we need to know what we're buying. And that's a better way to go, knowing what the engineering study's gonna be. And is that engineering study, that'll include what the cost is? When you do the study, will it not estimate, well, this is what the bridge will cost, the labor, et cetera, foundations, whatever it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
the only question in my mind now is, what if we have to hire a project manager, how much that's gonna cost? Hoping we don't have to hire somebody.
The engineering study has to be done with a project manager?
Sure would help.
Engineer.
Go ahead.
My understanding is that if Tigan Bond or whoever you hire, that was the whole point. That is the person who coordinated.
Right, I
Because
think-
nobody on the towns, none of us are engineers who have that background.
I know, I think just the project manager would be someone that says, all right, how do we make the apples and oranges all be apples and apples? So that, they just have to make sure that the things that go out to the next round of bids are what's
Yeah,
needed.
it'd be like the president of the trust, you
It's
gotta
the champion.
put things together, you gotta keep things rolling.
And you gotta find out also if the grant requires.
Yeah, I'm gonna suggest that kind of conversation maybe happen outside this committee meeting.
Yeah, you guys have to, and also Southampton has to be on board. Is it their money too, the grant?
We're gonna
money?
look for matching from CPAC and, like.
No, but I'm talking about this
right,
50,000, is this,
It's just
is it just Southampton's money, or?
It's East Hampton, Southampton, and Land Trust.
So
It was
they all
granted
have,
all three.
they all have to agree to use this money that way? Oh, good,
It was
well,
granted all three.
okay, well, once that happens, you move forward. So we're gonna pull this off the agenda and wait for you to come back. But I think you're hearing that you heard originally that this committee supports this project.
And it sounds like the way you work with this one, and we need matching funds from two communities, because it's a reimbursement thing. Basically, you say, all right, we support it, you get this up to this amount, then the other people say that, and then you're good, so.
We put contingency funds in if you can make a reliable argument that you need them, because you're not sure what's gonna be found when they start digging.
Right, but you don't put a contingency in, we're gonna give you this money only if the other community gives you the money? Or vice versa?
Well, I would
Well, that'll
think,
be
since
pretty
this
good.
is a combined project, yes, we would want to know if Southampton supports it.
Right. Because they're gonna wanna know that you support it, so.
Yeah, but we basically told you we support it,
Yeah.
for this one.
Well, we could vote yes, but part of our contract's gonna say, depending on,
Depending on whether, sure, okay.
Oh, yeah, what's where.
You could just build, you could just build half a bridge.
Get
and-
funding.
You can build a
what
plan.
happened? Well, East Hampton built it, but Southampton said no.
But
You have to jump from here to here.
It's called a
We
driving
own
board.
both shores though, so we still end up.
Yeah, that's why we're going to that meeting when, face the music.
Does town meeting have to approve CPA funds? Probably does.
Yes.
Okay, 174 people, that's good. I like
We
our
don't
phone
always
bill.
have a big meeting like that.
Anything else on our agenda? I have nothing else. Next meeting is November 17th.
Motion to adjourn. No, wait a minute, I got something here.
Well, you didn't
speak up.
speak up, buddy.
Give that to the chair.
All right, what do we got?
You're gonna find out extremely interesting. That wasn't a Gazette.
They voted no in Southampton?
No, that's some clown put this.
Oh,
in.
I read this.
You did.
And the guy's an idiot, so,
What does it
You
say?
wanna read it?
Harry?
not really. This is it's a personal letter to the editor saying everybody in Southampton should vote no.
No, that's Saul Hadley.
In South Hadley, excuse me. He doesn't want to pay the taxes.
They don't wanna put a CPA in Saul Hadley. It's gonna cost them
$35 per year is
$35
a
a
tax
year.
burden.
That's South Hadley.
Just show it to everybody. I mean, if you wanna read
They've
it.
gone
I read
back
it,
and
I
forth on this
find it.
issue for.
I just find it so
couple different
ridiculous.
times.
Thank you, sir, you know? Be less money, I gotta divide up in the pool.
Well, by
Yeah,
putting up
good.
signs and making ado about what we've done, and letting people see what their CPA money was applied to, I think we'll find.
Well, if I was supporting the CPA vote in South Hadley, I would go to East Hampton, pull their website up and say, see?
Yeah, seriously.
Look at what they've done.
So every town doesn't have one of these?
No, the town.
You don't know
some of
about
it's
this?
Town by
That's
town.
the-
You have to vote on it, and it's either 1 to 3% of a part of your property taxes over 100,000. So if you're $300,000 home, 200,000 of that is taxed 3% more if you vote 3%. And that money goes directly to CPA, but it's
Oh,
restricted
okay.
funds. You
Money.
can't use it to pave the roads. I always bring that up. You can only use it for affordable housing, open space protection, recreation, historic preservation. And we've used it extensively. We spent, what, $50 million in 3 years? And since it was, was it 2001? I forget. We spent a lot of money.
Yeah, it's about.
Yeah, I'm looking.
It's a rather high figure.
Right, well, I mean, that's, yeah,
It's like the
you had 35, you know, it's not, the guy who complained about
$10 million.
$35 a
Yeah,
year,
but
you
$10
could like,
million.
take a walk on the boardwalk, and be like, would you pay $35 a year to like have that in your town, you know? I mean-
Well, we just looked at,
Well, you know, and the idea is that you're investing in the community too, so your property values are going up. I mean, I think people come to East Hampton and they see our rail trail project and they see what's happening at the mill buildings and they see what's here at the boardwalk and so forth, and there's actually demand to come and live in East
They
Hampton.
definitely got a
And-
3% boost in their over $100,000 property value.
so here's an interesting thing. We had to provide for the Manhattan Rail Trail $50,000 in order along with, I think, Northampton, in order to leverage $4 million in grants. That money doesn't come unless there's some way in which the local people fund it. Now, I know the budget of the city. $50,000 isn't gonna come from the general fund when we can't even afford to give the schools what they need,
Half
et
of our
cetera.
teacher, right.
But if we have a CPA fund, $50,000 is a drop in the bucket. It really is. When you have, we have 1.15 million, and we spent a lot of money this year.
Since
you took over, we
spent a lot of money.
I'm very liberal with somebody else's money. But seriously, Why South Hadley? Well,
Hey, bigger pool for us.
Exactly.
Right?
that's true, because we get matching funds from the state, and if they have to have more cities. Vote no, South Hadley.
Yeah, they get numbers that drop out, or if they happen to drop out, and then really add to the pool.
There you go.
All right, Scott, you can make your motion now.
That was the understanding
Oh,
initially.
why is it? We already had the motion.
Yeah, I'll
right?
second my own motion.
We have-
Oh, I thought it was.
I'll second
Jay.
it.
Motion.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Thank you all.
So what kind of items is for?
Well, the state, it's part of the budget process. The state.
Thank you once again.
I got an email
Meeting.
I would like to know.
I think it should be another.
You can't do anything.
Thanks for the notice.
It's not a statutory match like an airport match, 70%.
The ones that are projects, these projects. Laurel Mill Pond is ours.
It's all.
Where's my money?
They're voting on it.
But all of these are training departments, no town hall.
Yeah, we had a great
And, you know, some communities are a little more reliant. What it ends up doing is,
Fine. I just wanted to know, because it says 2005.
It's not Harvard County.
No! I can give you less information, then you won't be curious about it. Take the names out too, take everything out.
See all that.
But we've been put up to this.
If he's allowed to use it, then I suggest he don't mind. But you know, he's planning on using it.
But to your point, there's no way to roll it back.
I don't know. I bet there are some kind of. It's not identical legislation.
So the mayor would be the only like check on, like we want money to do this specific project. Everything that project is done. Like there's no, you know what I mean? Like, and there's extra money.
Appointee of the city council.
That money would just be sitting there unless the mayor.
You've given us a report. All you do is
Hey man.
don't just run around and
Yeah, it's really a
John
job.
has a thought. Something's happening over there. I just want to know.
I was on the fence about it, and I thought, do I want it?
That's all I want to know.
Yes. That's true. That's true. I have a personal stake in this.
I'm not putting pressure on you to get us our money back. I just wanted to, now it's picture.
Actively been monitoring, that's just a long process.
That's good.
Where's he?
I don't mean that in a bad, you know, you know, like it's surviving.
It's just, it's a
Yeah, but you know, again,
Different kind of, pretty immersive experience there. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people, some engineers and,
You're on top of it.
oh yeah.
Look at.
But it's very, you know, like it's funny. It's like Castro Ryan. Although I did just write it. Did you? Yeah, no, it's very different in some ways.
This is what we got. The office of the photocopy of the sheet here, when you go to practice on.
You know what I mean? Like it feels like, well, there's probably.
the fact that
I swear it takes longer and longer to get over the bridge. She's actually going back to Boston. And I don't want to audition. She came out. We went and saw her. It was a great. You were over there, right?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
And it was a great play. She was in it. She was the lead. got drafted. Yes, doesn't matter. Yeah, well, you can watch it.
It's really not a project. This one. Yeah, take it to the last meeting, see if you can get a vote on it.
It was
Go for it.
We used to
Sounds
wait
great.
fairly
It's
like
like
suburban breakdown of the suburban.
It's so much different.
And then wait for the.
Yeah, we actually,
we went.
we were talking,
Leaving there, I was
Took
like.
him out for a beer. And
Oh, it's 'cause it's red.
Last person out,
I didn't
shut
choose to
down.
leave there, and he came back, kind of, you know.
Yeah, no,
and like,
Down for-
but I mean,